First of all, what are the goals of preoperative evaluation? To assess the patient's overall health status, to rule out the comorbidities that can cause peri or postoperative problems, to optimize the patient's condition, to reduce the surgical and anesthetic perioperative morbidity and mortality, to formulate an appropriate care plan, to provide smooth induction, maintenance and reversal while maintaining the vitals. Now, our evaluation first of all starts with perioperative period by assessing the proper history, which should include present and past history of any lung diseases, associated symptoms like dyspnea, cough, with history of smoking, comorbidities if present like hypertension, diabetes, any drug treatments, atopy. Atopy means allergic reactions to any drug, pollens, dust, etc. His exercise tolerance. Then we come to the physical examination, which should include a proper respiratory tract evaluation like the presence of V's or Rales, presence of hypertension, tachycardia. Basic evaluation should include all the basic investigation like CBC, RFT, LFT, along with some specialized investigations which may be required to evaluate the further pulmonary status of the patient. The test may include arterial blood gases, chest X-ray, functional evaluation by spirometry, ECG and exercise tolerance. Our examination should also include the thorough examination of airway, which is done by many methods, but most commonly bedside we use Mallampatti classifications, in which the class 1 is visualization of facial pillars, complete uvula, soft and hard palate. Class 2 is visualization of uvula, soft and hard palate. Class 3 is visualization of base of uvula, soft and hard palate, and class 4 is only the hard palate is visualized. After airway examination, we should also ask the history of if presence of asthma is there. The pulmonary function testing to be done to assess the disease status is mandatory. If the patient is having any history of COPD like emphysema, PFT and arterial blood gas analysis is done to assess the disease severity. Cough evaluation should be done, how severe, how frequent. Dyspnea, etiology evaluation should be done whether it is of cardiac origin or respiratory origin depending on the history and symptoms frequency and the precipitating factors. Smoking, we should always ask the patient to stop smoking, and nebulization should be started at least 8 weeks prior to the surgery. Anticholinergics are beneficial as they cause bronchodilation. In pre-medication, they can be started for optimization. H2 blocker should be avoided because unopposed H1 activation leads to bronchospasm. Now coming to pulmonary function test and pre-anesthetic evaluation, the pulmonary function tests are of two types broadly. Those that are related to the mechanical ventilatory functions of the lungs and the chest wall, and those that detect the abnormalities of gas exchange. Now, who are the patients which require a pulmonary function test? Their criteria are patients with chronic pulmonary diseases, those who are smokers, patients with history of severe dyspnea on exertion, patients with chest wall and spinal deformities like kyphoscoliosis and something, morbidly obese patients, age more than 70 years, patients undergoing upper abdominal surgeries, patients undergoing thoracic surgeries, and presence of respiratory symptoms such as cough and wheeze. There are some contraindications for PFT like myocardial infarction, unstable angina, recent thoracoabdominal surgery, recent ophthalmic surgery, thoracic or abdominal aneurysm and pneumothorax. That has to be kept in mind and cross-checked always. Now coming to the assessment of mechanical ventilatory functions of the lung and chest wall, there are some simple bedside tests which can be done at the time of pre-anesthetic evaluation, which include like assessment of the respiratory rate, important for evaluation of weaning and extubation of this patient after surgery. The respiratory rate has to be kept in mind. Cough test. In it, patient is asked to take a deep breath and then cough once. Test is positive if first cough leads to recurrent cough suggestive underlying any pulmonary disease. Another test is Sabre's breath holding test, in which the patient is asked to take a deep breath as much as he can and hold the breath as far as possible. Normal cardiopulmonary reserve is present if the patient is able to hold his breath without distress for 25 or more seconds. Cardiopulmonary reserve is borderline if it is between 15 to 25 seconds, and it's decreased if it's less than 15 seconds. Snyder's match blowing test, it's another bedside PFT test which measures the maximum breathing capacity of the patient. The patient is asked to blow out a matchstick from a distance of at least 15 centimeter. If a patient is having normal pulmonary reserve, he'll be able to blow out the matchstick. If the patient is not able to blow out the matchstick and the distance, we can thus predict that the maximum breathing capacity is less than 60 liters per minute. And it's more than 60 liters per minute if he is able to do so. Another bedside PFT test which is very easy to do and interpretation leads to very conclusive results is tracheal auscultation. If the breath sounds are audible for more than 6 seconds on expiration, it denotes significant airway obstruction. Another bedside test is if the patient is able to blow out a balloon, he is having normal pulmonary functions more or less. Another elaborate testing for the pulmonary functions is spirometry. Another bedside PFT test is de Bono's whistle blowing test, which measures the peak expiratory flow rate. Patient blows down a wide bore tube at the end of which is a whistle. On the side is a hole which is adjustable knob. This is a diagram of the whistle which is used. As the subject blows, whistle blows, leak hole is gradually increased till the intensity of whistle disappears. At the last position at which the whistle can be blown, the PEFR can be read off on the scale present on the whistle. Now this is a photograph showing how spirometry is ideally done. The patient takes a deep breath and blows as hard as possible into the mouthpiece for 6 to 8 seconds until the lungs are emptied as much as possible. And a trained person or a nursing staff watch who is qualified to measure the spirometric recordings. This is the spirometry graph which you all know that this is very basic, which includes the tidal volume, expiratory and inspiratory reserve volumes and residual volume. We'll go ahead. Now coming to the dynamic lung volumes and their assessment. First is the forced vital capacity. What it is the volume of the air that can be forcefully exhaled after maximum inspiration. Indirectly reflects the flow resistance property of the airways. Interpretation of is in the form of percentage of predicted value. 80 to 120 is normal, 70 to 79 is mild, 50 to 69 is moderate reduction and less than 50% is severe reduction in the forced vital capacity. Now another very vital dynamic lung volume which is important is forced expiratory volume in the first second, that is FEV1. The volume exhaled during the first second of the FVC measures the general severity of the airway obstruction. It is normally in the range of 3 to 4.5 liters. Rather than the dynamic lung volumes itself, the ratio is very important for the differential diagnosis of various diseases. FEV1 by FVC is the first ratio. It is reduced in obstructive disorders. It is also interpreted in the form of percentage predicted value. Greater than 75% is normal, 60 to 75% is mild obstruction and 50 to 59% is moderate and less than 49% is severe obstruction. This is the differentiating chart. As we can see in obstructive diseases, the FVC is normal, FEV1 is decreased and the ratio is also decreased. In restrictive diseases, FVC is decreased, FEV1 is decreased or normal, but the ratio essentially remains the same. So this is the differentiating criteria between the obstructive and the restrictive diseases. In mixed disorders, both the FVC and FEV1 are decreased and we can find the ratio is also decreased. So it is different to diagnose on that basis. Coming to the next volume, forced expiratory flow volume, that is FEF. It is the average forced expiratory flow during the mid portion of the forced vital capacity. It is measured in liter per seconds. It is highly variable, depends heavily on FVC, what is the major FVC of the patient, and its value normally ranges between 4.5 to 5 liters per second, or we can say that it is 300 liters per minute. Interpretation is also in the form of percentage predicted. Greater than 60% is normal, 40 to 60 is mild, 20 to 40 is moderate and less than 10% is the severity. Peak expiratory flow rates. It is the peak flow rate during expiration. It is measured by the peak flow meter, which measures how much air is being blown out on maximum capacity depending on age and height. It is normally 450 to 700 liters per minute in males and 300 to 500 liters per minute in females. Clinical significance lies, it is impaired in coughing and hence likelihood of postoperative complications. Coming to the preoperative optimization of these patients suffering from any kind of pulmonary diseases like obstructive or restrictive pulmonary diseases, the anesthetic management of patients with pre-existing pulmonary disease is a challenging task. It is associated with increased morbidity in the form of post-operative pulmonary complications. Preoperative optimization of the lung functions helps in reducing these complications. Therefore, it is an important part. Preoperative optimization targets not only on medical management of the disease process such as asthma and COPD, but also on behavioral modification like giving up smoking and educating the patients about incentive spirometry pre and post operatively. Now coming to the basic differentiation parts of COPD and asthma. First, COPD, it occurs in middle age, while asthma it occurs in early age. COPD is associated with prolonged smoking, exposure to dust and chemicals. Asthma is associated with allergies and rhinitis and also eczema. COPD is slowly progressive. Asthma is symptoms aggravate in night and morning, and some seasonal variations are also present. Airway has as well as the parenchyma is grossly influenced in COPD. In asthma, only the airway is affected, it is spasmed or constricted. COPD is irreversible in nature, asthma can be reversed, and in COPD, inflammation is neutrophilic and CD4 driven, and that's why inhaled steroids are ineffective and does not make much of the difference. And while in asthma, inflammation is eosinophilic in origin and CD4 driven, that's why inhaled steroids are effective and very, very effective in preoperative optimization. Coming to a very important part in dealing with the optimization, that is the cessation of smoking. Why it is important? Most COPD patients share a common risk factor. Patients are advised to stop smoking for a period of at least 4 to 6 weeks prior to the surgery. This reduces the airway reactivity, improves mucociliary function and decreases the carboxyhemoglobin levels, thus improves the oxygen delivery to the distal tissues. Smoking cessation even 12 to 24 hours preoperatively can decrease the carboxyhemoglobin concentration to low levels and improve the ciliary movements of the respiratory tract and produce a significant decrease in sputum production. Chest physiotherapy, another very important part. This is the last slide we are going to discuss. After that we have to wind up our session. We will carry on in the next session. Coming to it, we use 6 to 12 positions in which we percuss for 3-4 minutes per position with cupping postures of the hand like this, and controlled breathing between the positions is indicated. It is contraindicated in the cases of if there is a history of raised ICP or symptoms associated with, along with hemoptysis or hypertension, GRD or coagulopathy. Thank you so much for listening.